People will often ask me to demonstrate a yoga pose or to demonstrate the correct version of a yoga pose based on the principles that I teach. And then they're a little surprised when I say that I won't. And I want to share with you why, because I think it's very important from the perspective of what I'm sharing with the yoga world and with people who are in pain generally, who are my clients. First off is I don't actually see any benefit for my demonstrating a yoga pose, whether it's to a yoga teacher or whether it's to a student who's come in to help themselves get out of pain or to help progress in their practice. I don't see how my pose has any bearing on them improving, progressing, or getting out of pain. For me, it's not about the end form. It's all about the movement into that end form. So said another way, it's all about form following function. So if someone is moving well, if when they're moving into a position, they're moving that which is supposed to move and keeping quiet that which is not supposed to move. If they're moving in a range of motion that's optimal for them and that's pure, then the pose naturally emerges. See, it's all about function, and as their function improves, then their movement becomes more smooth and coordinated, and the pose naturally expands, or the full expression is more naturally expressed. So it's why I focus on principles, because with principles, I can teach many, many, many more people with many, many different conditions. Because whether someone has scoliosis or heart disease or is coming out of surgery or they're going through chemo or they're done chemo, we need to be looking at their movement patterns. Because what's really interesting, if you take a look at the contraindications for someone who has heart disease, and you actually look at a typical person who's come out of surgery related to heart disease, their movement patterns won't actually enable them to do that which is contraindicated. It's really interesting. So when you focus up on movement, you'll naturally be in a place that is serving the person. Or as we like to say in yoga, it's safe. Because we're working within what's available for that person. So there's no need to memorize all of these things that are contraindicated or what should I think about here, because if you focus on the movement will dictate what can or can't be done. It's really quite brilliant. The body doesn't lie at all if you focus in on the movement, if you focus in on the principles. So what do I mean by principles? Well, in my Anatomy and Asana book, I speak about 8 particular principles. They've expanded somewhat over the years, and here are just a few that you can kind of toy with. The first one is to nourish relaxation, or to begin with ease. The second one is to begin with your spine and mind, so that as you're moving with awareness and with ease, you're understanding where your spine is in your movement. Right? So whether you're in Tadasana or going into triangle, or whether you're going into a back bend, or whether you're going into forward bend, you're recognizing where your spine is in space. And then you connect that awareness and relaxation with where the knowledge is of your spine. You connect that to your largest joints. Your largest joints is where so much congestion happens and is where most primary movement happens. So if you're stuck there, you're likely going to compensate somewhere else. So if you begin through these largest joints and you start to unravel patterns from there, you move into yoga asana from there, you'll be really quite astonished at what you start to see and unfold in your practice and for your students. And honestly, quite truthfully, it's why I have so much success training yoga teachers to be great yoga therapists, and why I have such great success working with people who have pain to get out of pain. Because I focus in on these principles and I help nurture these principles, and then as they become more aware of their own movement patterns, they become more aware of so much more. They move better, that becomes more integrated into their life, they recognize that their body is a barometer of their mind. They begin to experience asana. So it's all about them and their movement, and how the movement opens the doorway to all the koshas, to the experience of asana, sitting comfortably and still. So that is why I don't demonstrate the pose. Because to me, it's not about the pose. It's about so much more than that. And it's about diverting the attention back to the student, teaching them the awareness, teaching them where their body is in space, and in space while they're staying still and while they're moving. What I encourage you to do is, if you're curious about this, I encourage you to check out my online trainings or even my live trainings, because you'll really gain so much more in those experiences than just on a 2 or 5 minute Facebook post. I've got one training going on right now. It just started on Tuesday. It's called Getting Unstuck. And it really and truly is about helping you unravel some of those stuck patterns. You've got me for an entire month between October, whenever it was the 15th on Tuesday or the 16th on Tuesday, right through until about the November 15th range. So if you're interested, if you want to explore this idea of it's not about the pose, if you want to experience what it is about the movement and how that impacts you as a teacher, you as a student on your mat, check it out. You can email Rose directly through our website at functionalsynergy.com. Let her know you saw this video and she'll get you all set up. There's also some live training coming up in October in Calgary, again in Calgary in April, and then in Toronto in September. We've got a whole series of online trainings between now and then. So if you're interested, send us a note. We'll hook you up. We'll get you set up in terms of what's available and when, so you can progress your own self in your practice as a teacher and as a student. Have a great time on your mat. Happy exploring.